intelligence to these.
Okay, and we are live. Hello, you.
Hi.
Viewer.
Welcome to the
hello,
31st.
All right, I'm going to do an impression of Magnus.
If
Nice.
if everyone tries to do an intro at the same time, it gets all fucky. So, so we're just gonna get going. So this is Casual Lorechat 31. I think we decided we want to start with souls. Was that where we?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
This is related to a conversation I had earlier this week.
The conversation was going.
Yep. So, since we're starting with the topic of souls, I think it'd be interesting if we start with the topic of soul gems and the soul trap spell. More specifically, how the soul trap spell has changed over the history of Tess.
Has it?
Now, this was primarily brought up by a member in the unofficial Elder Scrolls RPG Discord by the name of Le Noodle. Haha, funny name.
That's a pretty good name.
Noodle in particular brought up that they found it very interesting that the soul trap spell can somehow differentiate between members of the 10 races and everything else. It seems rather arbitrary, and in fact, as we know in lore, it is described as arbitrary. He and I had some discussion over this, and he brought up an interesting concept for why exactly soul trap works the way it works. And he brought up mythopoeia, the concept that because it is believed to be true and it is believed that a god can make something true, God therefore makes it true. In particular, he was bringing up the concept of Arkay. Now, as many people may know, prior to Oblivion, the soul trap spell worked on anyone. Anyone's soul could be trapped. And we see it in Morrowind, we see it in ESO. You didn't need this concept of a black soul gem. Following Morrowind, however, once you get into Oblivion, you suddenly need a black soul gem in order to capture so-called black souls.
I never got how that worked.
Now, here is Noodle's explanation of it. He believes it to be mythopoeia. You see, the Mages Guild has had a ban on necromancy for quite a while. I believe it was ever since the Mages Guild's inception, given that, their founder was opponents to a necromancer.
From
but
what
it was
I
never
recall, though, it was only what's his
Hannibal Traven.
You're cutting out a bit.
It was highly discouraged, but it was only the Archmage at the start of Oblivion that actually banned it.
Correct.
Something along those lines.
Correct. That's where this gets interesting. What I was going to say was that it has been highly discouraged and frowned upon in Mages Guild history, but was never strictly banned. People just didn't want to acknowledge it. It wasn't until Hannibal Traven came along as Archmage when he started strictly enforcing the ban. What he believes is that Hannibal Traven began messing with the soul trap spell so that the soul trap spell could begin to recognize the difference between someone who is a man, murder, beast folk versus, say, a giant or a goblin or a troll. Now,
pretty racist
we also need to understand that the Mages Guild does have ties to Arkay. More specifically, the most obvious example we ever get to see is that in ESO, the Mages Guild, most guild halls have a priest of Arkay who can cure lycanthropy and vampirism. So, Noodle's explanation is that because Traven started strictly enforcing this ban and started using potentially rites of Arkay to enforce the ban, that in turn changed the soul trap spell forever going forward. It, of course, isn't changed going backwards. If you go backwards, soul trap goes back to being what it was, just a spell that traps a soul inside a soul gem. But going forward, you kind of just can't turn it back. It works because the people believe it works. In other words, in a very silly fashion, it works because so many people believe it's working, and therefore they wog it into being. To anyone who does not understand, that reference is a reference to the orcs of Warhammer 40k, who have what can be referred to as collective psychic ability. If enough orcs believe something to be true, it becomes true. They paint rockets red because red rockets go faster.
That's true for like everything in 40k actually, but
yes.
the orcs are pretty
blank. The orcs are the biggest example of it.
Okay, so anyone want to make comments on the site?
I find something interesting. I have one.
Okay. Were you not finished, Charlie?
Oh
no, I'm done with bringing that up. I agree with Noodle on his idea.
I find it pretty funny that what differentiates white soul gems and black soul gems isn't the sentience of the being, because like goblins and trolls and whatever, they can think. So how far is what draws the line between what is considered necromancy and what isn't?
It could actually be considered based on the concept of what the races of Tamriel consider to be sentience. They may not necessarily consider goblins to be sentients. They could consider them to be very simple creatures.
I mean, they are. But they can't talk. They can talk. They have a language.
Yeah.
The thing is, like a religion.
Goblins are looked at as being very simple creatures, when the reality of the situation is goblins have a more complex political system than anyone else in Tamriel. If I recall correctly, I believe goblins are actually constantly warring with each other.
So what you're saying, Charlie, is that this idea is based on the notion of how people perceive civilization or race rather than the actual presentation of civilization. So even though goblins are very complicated, same with minotaurs, same with, the Falmer even have
in this case, it could very well be not just how people view it, but more specifically how Hannibal Traven viewed it. Hannibal Traven being, he was an Imperial, wasn't he? Hold on.
Breton.
So.
Wait.
Yeah, Matt.
Yes, he is a Breton.
There's something that kind of puts a dent in the... Up until Black Soul Gems only first appeared in Oblivion, right?
Correct.
Are they in ESO?
No, they are not.
No.
Even prior to Update 12.
Well, hold on.
Sort of.
They are in the game, as in you can see them. You cannot have them.
Yeah.
That they are not an actual item. But if you go to Cold Harbor during the main quest,
they definitely look like Black Soul Gems.
Yeah.
Okay.
That being said, even prior to Update 12, when they merged all Soul Gems into just being a Soul Gem, they never had Black Soul Gem. It went up to
different Soul Gems were basically allocated for different level ranges. So like 1 to 5, that's a petty Soul Gem.
Yeah. Then, level 50 and up was a Grand Soul Gem, which meant a level 50 Bandit was, a Grand Soul Gem.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel really weird searching this on Google.
God, my nose. I have that feeling that I need to sneeze.
The main thing that ESO kind of brings to kind of make this weird is the fact that we can soul trap people. We can soul trap each other in PvP. And you can kind of explain that about, okay, well, vestiges, maybe there's some weird stuff there. But you find a bandit, you can soul trap him and kill him, and you get his soul. So, and it's not in a Black Soul Gem. So, personally, I think this is specifically to be less of a headache for the devs.
Yes.
Because then you got to figure out this whole system, and it's like, you know what, fuck it, just make everybody's one soul. It's fine. We'll deal with it later.
Yes. Hold on. I believe there is a... Oops.
The largest soul gem in game is the Grand Soul Gem, right?
Correct.
Yes, not counting Black Soul Gems and Azure stuff.
Crap.
If you can consider black, kind of parallel. But.
There's also the Colossal Black Soul Gem that's unique for Hannibal Traven's soul.
Oh.
I mentioned this because in Elder Scrolls Blades, of all things, they introduced a new type of soul gem that's like above Black Soul Gem.
It's like a what? Black Soul Gem?
It's above Black Soul Gem,
Oh, I see.
and it's I think it's supposed to hold the souls of like things that are a little higher gradient, or at least more mythically powerful than normal people. So like the soul of an Aelid Lich King, or the soul of a dragon, for example.
Yeah. It is
They call
worth
it
pointing out that the official distinction between white souls and black souls was initially made by Vanis Galarian as a memo to most guild halls.
Yeah. That's I think the first instance we see, and I've got a potential explanation for this too, but I want to get through you guys before
They
I
found the
can.
name.
The guild memo on soul trapping, written by Vanis Galarian Archmagister Emeritus, in one, two, three, four, five. In the fifth paragraph, he proposes the potential that they categorize all souls into two classes: legal or white souls, those smaller essences that are captured from beasts and animals, and illegal or black souls, which are derived from sentient mortals. It is worth pointing out, he specifically says sentient mortals, which would mean that all Daedra count as white souls.
There's
Which is
also
kind of
the
funny.
there's also the book in Oblivion about it that specifically says that black soul gems are to hold the souls of more powerful beings, so men and elves and beast folk.
Yeah.
Which if you consider the idea that goblins and trolls and ogres are like the degraded descendants of the Orsimer, it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't have black souls.
I don't necessarily agree with the idea that goblins and ogres are degraded descendants of the Orsimer for a very particular reason.
Why?
Goblins were already on Somerset before the Aldmer got there. Yeah, the Aldmer and the Altmer both have used goblin slaves ever since they first got there. Though how many of them actually have slaves is debatable. We don't actually know. I do want to say, I believe it was a member of House Hlaalu in Morrowind who did say that that the Altmer armies would occasionally bolster their ranks by hiring goblins, which is kind of funny.
Well, and in Tribunal, I mean that we see the Altmer enslaving goblins, which I don't know. I mean, a lot of that was kind of glossed over in Somerset, I thought, but the goblin slavery was totally a thing.
Yeah, it was totally a thing. We have no idea how widespread it is. Personally, if you ask me, I feel like it may not be that widespread because the Altmer are definitely haughty enough to believe that slaves aren't worth it. They're not going to do a good enough job of cleaning the house, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why would I want you as a slave? You're not going to clean my house properly. Here's $50. Go away.
Wow.
And just like that, I made a reference both to abhorrence of slavery and also to the Second Empire, so I win.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Okay, so speaking of soul gems, do you guys believe they trap the whole soul or just the energy, the animating force?
Whole thing.
Yeah.
I disagree.
That's a very interesting part. That's why I feel Black Soul Gems, as Mac pointed out, Black Soul Gems do get used on you in ESO, specifically when Mana Marco takes your soul. It could be that the reason black soul gems are able to bypass the soul trap spell is because they're forcing more of the soul out.
I think that soul gems only get your animals out because there's even a book in Oblivion that's called Souls, White and Black, and it explains how soul gems work and it talked about the two types of souls, and it specifically refers to souls as the animating force of the body, and talks about how it gives us energy and stuff. So
counterpoint.
Go on.
Queen Patema's werewolf ring.
That could be a specific thing, specific item, not like a generic soul gem you can.
Well, no, because as the story goes, there was a werewolf terrorizing, the areas around Solitude where she grew up.
She ruled in Solitude.
I know she was queen, but when she was queen in Solitude, but when she was a girl.
It was Imperial City she grew up in.
Imperial, okay, yeah. So there was a werewolf that was hunted down and soul trapped, and that soul was used to enchant a ring, and it's implied very heavily in the book. I don't think it's outright stated, but it's implied that the malevolence of the werewolf is present in the ring, and it starts to infect. That's my word, infect. Patema, and so she becomes more cruel. Think of it kind of like a Horcrux, a little bit. You wear the amulet of Salazar Slytherin, you just become a dick. I
don't think that. I don't necessarily think that the animus is a generic thing that's identical to everyone, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is, see, I'm of the mind that the whole thing is saved in the soul. And we can also see this in the Azura Star Quest in Skyrim. You got the whole dude like in the soul gem, and you got to go.
But that's not just a star.
It's just a dude.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's Azura Star.
And to point out,
Azura Star
that was
has
after it had been warped into basically a black soul gem.
Oh yeah.
There's a fucking dimension inside Azura Star.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, fuck, what am I saying? Okay.
The soul gems trap the whole soul.
Yeah. So you got the whole soul. I kind of think of it like an orange, right? So you've got this orange in the gem, and what you want is the meat on the inside, the usable part, the thing that is going to be useful for you, which in our case is the animus. So, I mean, how many people actually eat the rind? I mean, I've known a couple people, but they're fucking weird. So
they're always weird.
Yeah. So basically, we use the animus, and maybe some of the memory might stick to it, or and that's where we get. Yeah, and that's where we get
the guy who ate the soul gem.
Yeah. But then the rest of it's discarded, and that is when, because we're told that people don't show up in the soul cairn until after a soul gem is used. That's we're told that. And so I mean,
that's my theory.
The soul kind of, in my opinion, stays kind of in stasis in the gem, and then when it's used, the animus is yanked out of it, put into whatever item you're enchanting or recharging, and then the rest of it goes, and it gets discarded to go wherever it's going, be it Cold Harbor, be it the Soul Cairn, or whatever.
I guess I was wrong, but it's just that I had a hard time believing that a fucking gem that anyone could use would be able to trap your AE.
Yeah, so and
I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, and I mean that's.
Well, you say anyone could use. I mean, this is probably quite complex magic that not.
When I say anyone could use, I mean any necromancer and stuff could use a black soul gem to soul trap you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it may be one of those things where you've got it here, but you just don't have the juju to do anything with. You need protonymic magic. You need some serious firepower to actually do anything with that AE. Otherwise, it's like the pit of a peach. It's there, you've got it, and you could grow your own peach tree with it. But
are you gonna do that?
Are you really interested? No, what I want is to reanimate the body, or I want to, enchant a dagger, or I want to recharge my staff, or whatever. That's the part you're getting. That's the meat and the orange. I guess in this case, the peach, right? And then the rest of it, the pit and
You
the
just
wine.
you sort of toss the rest of it.
Yeah, who needs it? I mean, the memory. I mean, the memory you can only do so much about. Some of that sticks around. Maybe
Arkay
it's a thing,
certainly does.
what do you mean?
Who needs the AE?
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure.
And I've been
The Dreamsleeve certainly does.
yeah, I've been kind of dealing with ways to because like I don't know if we talked about this last time, but the Dreamsleeve and
Yeah, I wanted to get into this.
yeah,
Go
and
on.
the notion that the Dreamsleeve recycles souls, which is what I was told by people who are adjacent to Kirkbride as far as lore beardness goes. Like
Yeah, I can list like at least 2 sources for that.
yeah, and I'm sure there are. I just don't care enough to go and look for them.
It's out of the top of my head. I can list like 2: the Love Letter and Mankar's commentaries.
Yeah, the Dreaming Sleeve. Yeah, that part.
And the Love Letter talks about souls recycling and AE going to Aetherius
So
and stuff.
yeah, so kind of my project in the last. I don't
And
know.
also stuff related to Argonian lore.
Yeah, with
Because
the
you know how the Hist.
yeah,
they
and that
were-
was the main thing I noticed about that was that's just like how I've been told the Dreamsleeve works.
That's the funny part I want to get in. You know that book you love,
Which one?
The Infernal City?
Oh yeah. You're funny.
No, but seriously,
Oh, it's
a
so
lot of
lovely.
Argonian lore comes from those 2 books.
Sure.
And in that book, there's a part that is describing the Argonian character dying. And it talks about how his soul will return to the dream of thought of the Hist.
Yeah, I remember that. And then he like comes back, but he doesn't know who he is or whatever. He's basically just a.
And if you go to ESO, the realm of the Hist, where Argonian souls goes, is called the Dream of the Hist.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a miniature Dreamsleeve.
Yeah, and that was something I noticed on my first playthrough, and I mentioned that in the Argonian Selectives Lorecast, because I was the only one who had played Murkmire when we did that, and so I'm pretty sure.
That's sad.
Well, I mean,
Murkmire is really fun.
Murkmire had just come out like 2 weeks prior, and I had been the one who had 100%ed it.
Murkmire has more dank lore than Somerset.
It's. I don't know that more is necessary an applicable word here because Somerset's lore.
Is that more
So,
it's
okay, I'm being unfair because Somerset has like the Augur and like Sotasil dropping the word multiverse and stuff.
Man.
So
yeah, plus tower lore. Anyway. Dreamsleeve.
There's a idea I was discussing before in the USP Discord of all places.
Yeah.
Actually, a really nice place if you just ignore some people.
I don't know. I've made enough of a name for myself that I go in there and people just give me shit. So I mean, I just kind of I'm in the like in their server, but I don't talk all that often.
Okay, yeah, it's probably just because I don't have an opinion that's as extreme as yours, and I'm not as famous as you. So
if you
famous
can me, if you can
famous
famous
is an interesting word there.
Famous amidst the.
I mean,
okay, that's probably not well known. I don't know.
I mean, like I consider my little brother to be famous. He's the world's most famous stunt kite flyer.
Oh, cool.
If that's something you can be famous for, he's famous for it. He used to compete all the time, and now he doesn't compete anymore because he won them all. So he doesn't.
Okay.
So he just judges. But anyway,
I didn't know that, but
yeah.
probably bad choice of words. But there is this idea that I've been throwing around for some months now with my friend Ultima and some other people that the Dreamsleeve is the final layer of the RBs. Like, you know how in some places they talk about the final jump before reaching Amaranth? I think that's the Dreamsleeve.
Ooh, I do like that, because I've always kind of operated under the idea, and you know, it's real, kind of undefined, but I've always thought of the Dreamsleeve as kind of the negative space between dreams, right?
I think it's the place that the dreamer goes to dream. If you look at the 36 lessons, Sermon 19, Vivek goes into the non-spatial place.
The provisional house?
Yeah, to attempt the Amaranth. That space is talked about being a non-spatial space filled to capacity with mortal information and interaction. And then it says, Vivek made the provisional house at the center of the secret door. Because the secret door is the way to...
I like that a lot.
Reach Amaranth. And then if you look at some other places, for example, there's that in the love letter, it talks about how to reach Amaranth through the way of the Z, or the state gradient echo of Mundus Center X, which, at least according to a really old post by Rotten Deadite, it's supposed to be the flow of information of the universal mind behind Mundus or something.
Yeah. So
so he talks there. I'm going to get to the really good part. It talks about, I think it says in the love letter, jumping beyond the last bridge of existence is the last existence, the eternal I, or something like that. I mean, saying that this
the eternal I, or the eternal I?
I,
as in
the
letter.
The letter.
Okay. The name of God. Okay.
Yeah, it talks about how the state gradient echo is the final bridge to existence. So basically, the place Vivek went to try to reach Amaranth and failed. Okay, and then there's that RC chat that MK revealed that Anu is the Amaranth. He wrote a kind of a little text about it. The one and one who reaches the middle of Z, the center X, without calm, may his name be I and no other, because he takes the center of it in sleep. So the Amaranth sleeps in the center. Once again. And then, that's the part that blew my mind. You know the children's Anuad?
Yeah.
How it says that Anu slept in the sun. That doesn't really make any sense from the Elder Scrolls cosmology standpoint. What if instead of a literal sun, it's a metaphorical sun? Because the sun is the center of a solar system.
Which would work if the Elder Scrolls were heliocentric.
Yeah, I know it isn't, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. That particular bit, I've always seen as one of the only descriptions we have of the time before the dream.
I mean, it is, but I was looking at it from a more meta point of view.
Sure, yeah. No, like I'm not trying to shut you down.
But yeah, I think that this place that you go to try to reach Amaranth, to try to dream, that's the Dreamsleeve. That's my take on it, at least.
And I don't hate that at all. I like that a lot. Because
it also explains why Dig of Her is in the Dreamsleeve.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking of it in both a physical and a metaphorical sense, right? Because I mean, the physical, I think you got the brain, and then you've got kind of the layer of juice that that the blood-brain barrier that protects, that kind of cushions your brain from the skull, right? I kind of imagine something like that physically, but then metaphorically, it's that shell, almost like the source
Shell of
code
an egg.
of the source code of the dream. Basically, it all happens. I mean, when I say shell, I'm not talking shell. I'm talking PowerShell, right? CMD, but in a psychological sense rather than a computational one, right? So there's a function your brain enters, and it's pre-REM
I actually don't mind that at all because I think that Dreamsleeve is just pure data and pure information.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always thought
Which is why mages can use it to send emails.
Yeah.
It's the best.
And that's you're on a similar bead to something that I've kind of been orbiting around for a while, but I haven't quite known how to, or maybe I haven't tried to express it.
What is it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the white noise of the mind. All the. I mean, what do you even call that? I mean, have you ever tried to think about nothing?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not really something you can do.
Yeah, it's short of like Buddhist masters who can clear their mind and attain a meditative state. I know I can't do that. If I try not to think about things, and I try, like inner monologue turned off. It doesn't happen because suddenly I'm thinking about something else, and there's my inner monologue.
Look at the line from Sermon 19. I'm going to post it on the chat there.
Okay. Hey, Dylan.
Yeah.
But before I read that,
Dylan's here.
I want to kind of add something to this here. I've said this before. So we've got our white noise of the mind, just the firing synapses. Yeah, the data, and then that, to my mind, can play into how the Atata are raw emotion. I think the races are literal ideologies. That's why ideology is skin. That's why that's so important. Individual people are thoughts, and so different thoughts can then alter your ideology, or they can if one person is that important, and then people from a grand cosmological scale, they're so infinitesimal, they're so small and unimportant, they zip in and out. They're all over the place, and they're gone in an instant. But you can trace a lineage of it, right? You could take Glarthir, for example, and you could trace his life from beginning to end. Okay, well, here's where the thought originated. Here's how the thought ended. Maybe it was killed by this other thought, and I had this other thought, and I don't like that thought anymore. And then thought discarded. Well, he's dead. That kind of thing. So metaphorizing the happenings in the mind. So that makes a whole lot of sense for the Dreamsleeve, and I love that. So here's your quote from.
You're talking about how the Dreamsleeve is just data and raw noise. It fits really well with this line.
So Vivek put on his armor and stepped into a non-spatial space, filling to capacity with mortal interaction and information, a canvasless cartography of every single mind it has ever known, an event that has developed some semblance of a divine spark.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Who's it? What's it?
The non-spatial space.
And why does it say that it's a canvasless cartography of every single mind?
No, I'm smelling what you're stepping in here.
Because it's pure data, it's pure.
It's the amalgam of all the things that might become.
Silas hit the nail in the head.
Personified universe. Yeah, and I mean that fits with the metaphor that the mind uses to describe itself. Because I mean, if you try to think about your thoughts, I mean, you ever seen the movie Inside Out?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, joy and sadness and anger, those are effectively Atata. They control so much because they are the emotions. Similar kind of idea. That they are. they're metaphors, right? They're not actually the emotions. I mean, for them they are, because it's metaphor made manifest. But that's not actually how our minds work. And so the whole movie is using metaphor to explain emotion. And so same basic thought.
Yeah, this is why unless you're a really fucking badass mage, you can only use the Dreamsleeve through a lot of concentration and meditation. Because otherwise you're just going insane from all the knowledge you're getting.
Yeah,
so you're gonna throw up because you've now entered a literal roller coaster of memory.
And mind and thought and everything.
Yeah, and then thinking about maybe reincarnation. You have a recurring thought. Something keeps coming back to you, and you keep going. Oh well, I can't shake this feeling.
It's all about the idea that the universe is divided into levels, subgradients.
Yeah.
And below mortal death is the Z, which is the lowest. So once you go there, you have nowhere to go but up, which is why you reincarnate.
Yeah.
In my case, it's the ability to keep divining the future, but not knowing when the future is going to happen.
That's something I should add to my subgradient scale. Is the Dreamsleeve at the bottom and Dreamsleeve at the top to show
exactly
a lateral circular.
It's a loop.
It's like it's like the color red. It's at the end of the spectrum and the beginning of the spectrum.
There's like a graph that MK drew once about the Godhead that basically implies that it's a loop.
Yeah.
You saw that?
I don't think I did.
Let me try to find it.
If you can find it, send it to me. I want to see it, and I want to incorporate it in the scale I've got, because I'm including the scale in the second edition of an Arabic primer.
Okay, I found the diagram. It's from like a very old thread, but that's now defunct. The only reason I was able to find it is because a 4chan.
Oh, not which comes to no surprise.
Because they managed to save it. Okay, here it is. This is the graph you can recognize. MK's letter everywhere. You see how it's meant to be a loop. It's all pointing back up.
Yeah.
Ad Semblio Imperia in the ending, because it's just a loop. Which is why I'm not a fan of the idea that there's multiple dreams simultaneously. I prefer the idea that.
And we're sure this is Kirkbride, because the handwriting doesn't look like his. I mean, it could be.
I'm pretty sure it is, but
it could be Daria's.
Huh.
Although
I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's his. But it could be. I found it on there's like a Pear Trees doc post.
Why? I had an example of Daria's handwriting on an envelope she sent me. If I hadn't thrown it away, I could have used that to check. But I'm gonna save that. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in Arabic primer. There we go. Save that. Yeah. Click.
Yeah, I was typing there. I just found it here.
And pearl trees?
Yeah, there's a lot of good lore and stuff that was saved there.
Hey, yeah.
Structure of the orb. There's like from various people.
Hey, yeah, there's good stuff in here. I mean, a lot of these drawings I've seen before. Baby Belharza.
The Alessia I hadn't seen before here.
Oh, the Alessia one?
There's also his sketch of Riemann and a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I like the Almzavi one. That's my favorite because it's on my shirt.
Yeah. There's a lot of the original threads for a lot of stuff, such as the second edition pocket guide, the Sunshine of Shore, all the original threads.
Yeah, let's see, the Riemann. Where's the? I know I've seen an Alessia.
Very up there. Very top. It's his it's Arkay's counterpart for last year.
Oh, right there. I wasn't expecting it to be in color. Okay, I don't know if I'm sure I've seen it, but I don't remember seeing it. Yeah. I don't know if there was anything else we wanted to talk about regarding souls. No.
None that I can think of.
Okay. So let's see. I have not been watching the chat on video. Let's see if I remember. Fortunato Sanguine says, if I remember correctly, in Battlespire, a lesser Daedra of Nocturnal enters in some sort of coma, and it is said that she entered in the Dreamsleeve. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, Battlespire's got all kinds of really neat
Battlespire has
stuff.
really cool lore.
Yeah.
Battlespire has lore about the fact that if you speak the true nature of someone, you can do whatever you want to them.
Mm-hmm. Which that comes from some old ideas of like names, and true naming and that kind of thing. Your power word. You control demons by learning their true name, and then by speaking their name, you have power over them. Like that's this really old idea, and it's one that I really like, especially if it's used, I guess, subtly.
If I recall, the protonymic you can use on Daedra to specifically screw with them entirely, the protonymic you can use to banish them. So a good example is the protonymic of Marin Zagon is JKLO-DB-FEZP. And the reason it's this is because his full protonymic is J Kaleho Debe Fe Hezepe.
Yeah.
The M Manel has a profile on these barrel trees with all his writings and stuff, and there's a lot of it's a massive rabbit hole of lore, really, and stuff.
Yeah, Sanguine says, "OMG, they noticed me." Yeah, I see you. I'm watching. I'm not very attentive, but I'm watching.
Structure of the
he sees.
Well, what was that it, Matt?
There's a lot of good amount of archived lore in this site.
Oh, okay.
If you just search for Elder Scrolls or something.
Well, I'll include it in. Where did I? Oh, did I close it already? Silly.
Okay, I saw.
There we go. I'm gonna include this in the description of the video here. Let's see if I can I edit thing? Okay. You know what? I'm gonna put it in my timestamp document here. I'm trying to keep. We've been talking about souls for like 40 minutes, and it's awesome. It's so much less running around. I got
Souls and Dreamsleeve, awesome. This is probably like the most cohesive Lorechat ever.
Souls in the Dreamsleeve. There we go. Good stuff. So I guess unless we had more to talk about,
I think we can go to something else if anyone wants to.
Yeah. Oh, who's got something they want to talk about? Questions or whatever. I know, Charlie, you said you had a second thing you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring that up later. Like I want to let these sort of space.
You want me to get drunk first? Is what you're waiting for?
No. No, I just I felt that it would be more appropriate if I let the things I wanted to talk about be spaced out further, so that other people could bring up ideas.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna turn to YouTube here. Fortunato Sanguine in chat. What do you want to know? I'm gonna put you on the spot here. While I'm while you contemplate that, whatever you like. There are no stupid questions. Remember that. That's very important. No stupid questions. There are none. It's not a thing. Ask whatever you like. We'll roll with it. I'm gonna go refill my glass because this beer is 6.1. Wimpy.
Oh goodness, I greatly dislike how any spell in Barony can hit another person. Especially when it's one of my followers who just happens to walk in front of my dig spell and makes me waste magic.
Anything for me? Or us? Let's get that. Yes, nectar. Guy, I sound like a fucking alcoholic.
You kind of are.
Don't become one.
See, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't get drunk. Rarely ever do I get drunk. Like proper, like stumbling over myself, puking in the bathtub. That happened one time.
Man,
Okay. Oh, here we go. Well, last time I played ESO, I was quite fascinated by the Augur of the Obscure.
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about the Augur of the Obscure first. Let's see. Let's see.
Everything from Lig.
The Augur of the Obscure is like MK Spirit Animal.
Absolutely. I'm gonna open it up to augurs in general because the Augur of the Obscure, we only have his dialogue to work off of, and if
There's
we
a
open it up,
good theory on augurs that was made by on Tesla, done by a good friend of mine who is a moderator on the Elder Scrolls Discord. Who wasn't very crazy for ESO or deep lore.
what's is it on Augurs a study? Is that the one?
I think it is. Let me see. What's the username?
Vivier?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, yeah, I upvoted that one.
It's pretty good.
Let's see. So I'm going to link that in there as well. There we go. Oh, this is really long, so I'm not gonna read it.
Yeah. So it's very long. So no, but what I was going to say is oh, I love it when this happens. All right. So is the takeaway we can get from the Augur of the Obscure that League is Australia?
Maybe.
Boy.
I mean,
That's an interesting way to put it.
oh,
Because
sorry.
he has an Australian accent and he is from the adjacent place.
I think he's from New Zealand. Actually, the voice actor.
Oh,
I know where he's like
So
confused, but they're
Kiwi.
better than us. So
so he's a Kiwi. Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, Silence. I didn't see your comment in the
Oh,
chat
no.
there.
that's all right. I can ask it
Okay.
later.
We'll get to Adric planets after we're done with the Augur. That's because I don't want you to feel left out. So there are two main Augurs that we've seen in any of the games. I'm pretty sure, unless there's a third one.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know
only
about.
two. This guy
Okay.
he's kind of obsessed with the topic, and he only found two.
Yeah. So there's the Augur of Dunlane, who we see in Skyrim, and then there is the Augur of the Obscure in ESO, who is one of my favorite characters ever.
And the fun fact, it was what sold me on Turo as the new lore master, because when I learned that he wrote his dialogue by himself, I was like, oh, okay, this guy gets it.
Yeah. And you're talking about Tuttle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he also wrote Sotha Sill's dialogue.
And a lot of lore books. And Drake of Blades.
Yeah, he wrote The Truth in Sequence. Yeah, he confirmed that on Tesla. When he was when he had been confirmed.
He also confirmed it on like I forgot.
Anyway,
he wrote Milk Tomorrow.
Anyway, off topic. Go
on. So all that we know is that they are, not strictly speaking, human, or rather, man or mer. They may have been at one point, possibly. I mean, it sounds like the Augur of Dunline, based on someone else's dialogue. I don't remember who. They I think mentioned that he was a student at the College of Winterhold, and a spell went awry.
Who said that?
Yeah, it's something like a spell went bad or something, and now he's the Augur.
From what I remember, the exact quote goes something along the lines of, "The Augur of Dunlane was a brilliant student, but he got too into amassing power, and an accident happened, and he ended up getting fused with the energies that surround the college." I believe that's the exact terminology that's used to describe his current existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it was
it's sort of a
Tolkien who said
mind.
that.
Yeah, it was Tolfdir. So I played it yesterday. But yeah, it implies that an augur is a mind tied to an amorphous massive energy.
Yeah, almost like a. Go ahead. Sorry.
They're not like really a being anymore. They're more like sentient magic,
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
that sort of becomes omniscient as a byproduct of that, but can't actually act themselves because they're just energy. They have no means of utilizing themselves.
Yeah. So we kind of know at least one take. It could be rumors. I mean, how much of this is true on the Augur of Dunlane? I don't think we're given any...
does admit that it was before his time.
Yeah. So I mean, it could be.
I love how the guy in the theory describes augurs, metaphysical lore masters.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas the Augur of the Obscure, we're not really given any kind of origin for him. We know that he's old, I think, and then I think he can like choose his form, or he can jump from object to object or something like that.
He explains that his true form can't be perceived because humans only see in 3 dimensions, and he says that he's from the adjacent place.
Yeah.
And he talks about how in his universe, gravity makes you fall up.
Yeah, and he uses the word adjacent place, but it's in lowercase, and so you're like...
No, he uses it in upper, the adjacent place.
Oh, okay.
Back in the adjacent place, so I think he's talking about league. If he just said an adjacent place, I wouldn't care.
Yeah. So he could be from Lig. Dude's got a wicked sense of humor.
He references the most dank lore ever. He talks about her.
Yeah, he talks about how because you got to go collect the pieces of the Staff of Towers, and one of those is like the Numidium piece.
Yeah.
And he says, oh well, because the Staff of Towers was constructed before Numidium was, so how could they have this piece about a tower that didn't exist yet? And so he like kind of, I kind of imagine he'd wiggle his fingers at you a little bit if he had fingers. But otherwise, he's basically a crystal skull, Indiana Jones style, and
he's trapped in this skull. He's like he doesn't have a physical form.
Yeah, and was it he thinks about? He talks about things like, oh well, in another reality, all the water is cats or something like that. No,
he talks about how there's transliminal waves in the ocean.
Yeah.
And magic tones or something. He makes reference to all sort of shit.
Yeah. Like if you talk to him for a few seconds, like he knows his stuff. But
he's also a shit poster and a liar, so to say.
I'm catching up on YouTube chat here. Okay. But other than that, I mean, augurs, we don't really know a whole lot. I know in my RP for my main, and this isn't necessarily lore, it's just kind of what I'm doing for one character. I've got a character who, after he dies, he made a pact with a demi-prince, and the demi-prince said, "Okay, well, I'll turn you into an augur when you die, and that way you can live forever," or whatever. And then there was some kind of exchange there. And so after the Oblivion Crisis, when he dies fighting off the forces of the Deadlands, he basically becomes an augur, and he is now immobile. He can't move. He can project himself a little bit, so he can create like a kind of hologram of himself, how he used to look. But that's about as much as he can do.
His art, and my mind is kind of just blowing right now. Are any of you guys familiar with the water-getting girl and the inverse tiger?
No.
So it's probably going to take like a long while to explain, but it's one of my favorite MK texts because it's written in a very like Lewis Carroll sort of sense.
What's it called? Because I couldn't actually parse out the words.
So the water-getting girl and the inverse tiger. It's the one that has like a tiger rock.
Oh, the water getting. Oh, okay, yeah. The water get. Yeah, okay. Those words together didn't make sense to me verbally, but now they do. Okay, I may have seen this before. I don't know if I read the whole thing a long time ago.
It's basically like a fable that takes place in like jump in the zero deal of a past reality or something, or before it was changed from jungle. And anyway, it has some ties to the Magna-Gi pantheon, fun fact. But the important thing is this: there's a character there called Orlean, who is a rock, but he's also a tiger. He's like a rock with the face of a tiger. And a tiger with like black fur and green stripes, not the other way around. So the inverse tiger. And it's very strongly implied that he's a Magna-Gi. That got stuck in Mundus. And that is why he's and he wants to get to and he asks the girl, because it's like a fable, it's very metaphorical. He asks her to push him he's very dirty, so he asks, "Please push me to the river so I can get clean." Because he talks about how he's forgotten and he's a rock. So all that thing about like how stone equals history and water equals memory, Since he is forgotten, he became a rock. He's immobile. He can't think anymore. And there was anyway, and there's a striking resemblance to one of the beings named in the Magna-Gi pantheon, who specifically mentioned that said he was forgotten, and now only remembering like half memory or something. I'm probably talking out of my ass here, but the thought of a being who fell down and was forgotten and like became an immobile object, and how the Augur of the Obscure is maybe from League. I was thinking that maybe Augurs could be leftover Magna-Gi.
Maybe. I'm almost wondering.
Apparently, there's a theory that the Augur of the Obscure is one. And I don't know what it's based on, but I heard it exists. So I just made like a random connection.
Yeah.
I actually just want an excuse to talk about this text because I love it.
Well, in the chat over here, Silence and Mac are talking about whether a Magna-Gi who is in Mundus is still a Magna-Gi.
It's the leftover.
I mean, and so Silence says logically, though, a Magna Gi stuck in Mundus wouldn't be a Magna Gi anymore, which I would say is true, absolutely.
I mean, I agree.
Max says
the whole thing about Magni is that they're not in Mundus.
Yeah.
And they're not
Trying to find like some.
which I would say is why Meridnunda is a Daedra and not a Magna Gi. And this is, I think it's something that we talked about last time. The distinction, with Magna Gi aren't here anymore. They're out there. Daedra are here, but they did not contribute to the creation of Mundus. Whereas, the Magna Gi didn't contribute either, but their distance is what makes them Magna Gi categorically, rather than considering them Daedra. Was what we had talked about.
This is from the Magna Gi Pantheon text.
Yeah.
It talks about how the Quaker king's tiger aspect is now only fashioned as a stone leap of his last majestic fronting. And in the Water Getting Drow, we meet a tiger stone that wants to leap into the waters and go back to what it was.
Yeah. That's
it's a very good text.
That kind of sounds like Marin's to me.
Yeah, I talk about the leaping.
Yeah. But anyway, so for Augurs, I mean, we really don't have much of an idea of what they are. I mean, at least with the Dunlane's case, he was a dude. Does that mean that the Augur the Obscure was a dude once? Do we? I mean, we really have no information. I mean, it's really just speculation. But I'm hoping eventually we'll get some more Augur lore that tells us what they are. In fact, that's something I should have asked. I should have asked Tuttle when I had him. Ushik might know. He told me to message him next here in a couple weeks to set up an interview. And then MK hasn't returned my email, so I may put a bug in his ear. Well, he's a busy guy, and I waited like a month to email him, so partially my fault. Okay. So
there's the silence question from before.
Yeah. And that's what I think I'm gonna get to. So we're at 103, it looks like. Okay. So let's see. Silence had a question above. Let me find it here. There it is. Okay. So, Adric planets. What do we think of the idea that each Adra sleeps within a shell of their own power, the rocky surface with the entity within? That sounds a lot like an egg to me.
That's very interesting way of putting it.
Each Adric planet is an egg with the entity within.
Which would be really interesting if we consider, the cyclical nature of a lot of Atata, right? Things like Arkay, for example. He's the god of the seasons in addition to life and death, right? Summer, fall, winter, spring, etc. over and over again. Life and death. That's also a cycle. So he's like one of the most cyclical gods. And then we've got, Ifray. I would say. I mean, you could find some cycles in there, even if it's, the birth death of wilderness.
I would like to bring up that the Ifray part is interesting to me, because would Ifray necessarily be an Adric planet?
Which I don't think he actually does.
Yes, the reason I ask is because, of course, Ifray was the first to sacrifice themselves to make the Earth Bones.
Yeah. So, okay, well then Mara. Mara is being a mother. Well, you can't have a mother without a child. Child becomes the mother, etc. It's cyclical that way. And then who else? I guess
you can sort of say Akatosh's whole cycle.
Yep.
is
Akatosh is
thin.
extremely cyclical. Yeah.
And I kind of like to think of Arkay as a whole as sort of like the god of Kalpas, not
Arkay
just
is a
of
very
time.
Arkay is like a whole casting itself, really.
Well, Arkay's symbol is a sphere with kind of an interlocked geometric kind of figure around the sphere.
That's a later addition, though. That's not.
Is that later?
Yeah, in
Well, let me look it.
in Oblivion, it actually kind of looks like cords of rope wrapped around in a circle.
You sure? Because I thought that was Mara's.
Mara's is a knot.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. It's got the bearded face and the cord of rope wrapped around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So the sphere. Okay, I see this how this works here. So the sphere is Arkay's face. The cords of rope are the interlocking squares that surround the sphere. So I can see the evolution of that there. Yeah. But as for the Itata, the Aedra themselves being inside a shell, I'm not sure how much I jive with that. I mean, it's definitely interesting, and there's a lot that we could talk about. You know, the symbolism of an egg, and we could bring in some hist stuff, exact egg crack. But I mean, I've always been of the mind that the Itata are kind of like think Ego from the Marvel universe. He's a living planet, right? Same basic idea, but both at a physical and metaphysical level. So the planet is them in the purest sense, but they maybe emit an aura or something that causes that is their particular earthbone or aspect of nature. Whereas and we know that they're infinite, or well, we know based on the cosmology document written by MK that they're infinite, but we only see them as spheres because the mortal mind cannot comprehend.
The Aedra are infinite?
Yeah.
Yes.
But they're bound to Mundus.
Yeah, but levels of infinity.
Yeah.
It gets into
that must be a horribly uncomfortable concept. Infinity bound by finitude.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Now we know why they're infinity in a
pissed
finite
off.
space.
It's not that the Aedra are less powerful; it's that they are bound.
Yeah. They're. I usually use the word comatose, but even that doesn't quite do it justice because I mean they're still available. They're still there. They just don't have the agency to do anything.
There's an amazing post on Tesla that's from like 2014. They try to analyze Elder Scrolls cosmology in a way that the guy who wrote it was like he was majoring in astrophysics or something.
Yeah.
And he tried to talk about it in a way that fits with real world science.
Mm-hmm. Which
so
I'm usually pretty down with that stuff.
He talks about the stars are white holes emitting light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He talks about how when he gets the planets being infinite, he comes with the solution that they are finite in 3 dimensions, but they are infinite in some higher dimension we can't see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I take that.
So in the 3rd dimension, they're basically just spheres and they orbit normally. But in a plane we can see and can interact with they are infinite.
See,
The reason I mentioned this is because MK commented on that post and he said, "Pray continue." He just said that because I think he liked it.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't dislike it.
I don't agree 100% with it. The white hole thing, I don't agree. I think it's a lot more literal in the Elder Scrolls sense. But the idea that the planets are infinite because of higher dimensions, I agree 100%.
Andrew, in Murkmire, don't we have an Argonian reference to like the light of the sun being like the yolk from an egg?
Oh,
Yes, there's a lot
yeah.
of that. The sun is bleeding yolk, and we will drink from it.
Yeah, that's it.
And there's a legend, an old Argonian legend, that talks about how some ancient Argonians built an Argonian legend that explains what the sun is. It talks about how the sun is actually an egg, and that cracked open because some ancient Argonians built a spire so high that it reached the sun, and then they broke the egg and it became the sun.
The Argonians are so interesting because, like, to put it in real life perspective, I guess, like from our world, like the Argonians, the ancient Argonians were obsessed with Helios, and everyone else on the continent was obsessed with Apollo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that lore there, I just described that story. It's very much the exact egg cracking. If you think about it, cracking the sun open like an egg to reach their ascendants. I don't know.
Which and as I understand it, exact egg cracking is supposed to be a method of attaining amaranth that the Hist are searching for. They want to figure out how to create their own amaranth.
I'm just trying to. Vivek describes the exact egg cracking as this striking.
As what?
This striking. Something the lizard gods describe as the striking. And he talks about how the
Oh yeah. That's 21, sermon 21.
And then in Vex teaching, he elaborates that the striking is the exact egg cracking.
Yeah, the spoke to the 8 components of chaos as yet solidified by the law of time, static change, if you will, something the lizard gods refer to as the striking. That is the reptile wheel, coiled potential, ever preamble to the never action.
Yeah, there's more. I'm trying to find it. A lot of this is like in my PM Discord conversations with Ultima that go back to like a year ago.
Yeah.
We just throw off lore to each other. I know that there's a talk.
I mean, the Aedra being in eggs is definitely really interesting, and I mean, I think that's something I'll have to think about for longer than the breadth of a conversation. I'll have to muddle over that for a little bit. Maybe that's something we can come back to next time after I've had some time to really consider it. I mean, because there's no reason that my previous understanding of the Aedra can't mesh with what you're suggesting. They're just different, and there's got to be a middle ground, some way to reconcile both.
I think there's a difference between two extremes. There's one extreme that says, "Oh, the Aedra are dead and they can't do anything," and then there's the other extreme that says, "No, they are 100% alive. They just don't interact."
You're saying in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
There has to be a middle ground between those two interpretations because I think both are extreme. I don't agree with that either.
Yeah.
I don't agree that the Aedra can interact like a Daedric prince could, but I don't agree that there's like an Ultimate Priestess of Azura in Minnesota that says that the Aedra are dead. In plain English, she just says, "Oh, they're dead and can't do anything. That's why I abandoned them."
So I don't know if we satisfied your itch there, Silence.
Kind of.
Kind of.
It was basically just an idea that I came up with.
Gotcha.
After a conversation with Edmund in the Discord.
It's a cool idea.
It was just something that I felt kind of worked.
Yeah.
There's
I
there's
like it.
Speaking of ideas, have any of you read "This is the way the world starts," which is an apocrypha?
No, can't say I have.
Don't think I've heard of that one.
It's basically the story of convention if it was a Percy Jackson book. Basically, with like
Interesting.
everything is modernized. All the gods talk in very like plain modern English. There's a lot of jokes, a lot of like metaphors, to put it in a modern context. So like, in terms to think, so like, Magnus is literally like a CEO of a company that's like very methodical and likes to draw, and a literal architect. And in this text, Mundus is described as like a factory or a company or something. And that it even makes fun that Lorcan is actually annoyed that it became a real thing because he just wanted it to be a scam. He didn't want to actually build a whole place. But anyway,
yeah. I want to move on because we're about an hour and 17 minutes in now. I want to get
it's
to
a good read. It's pretty funny and it's good.
Yeah. I want to. So on YouTube chat here, is it Patricio? I don't know. I hope I said that right. He asked, "What is the number 6? What's special about the number 6? The sixth house, the sixth element, which is flesh. Does that have anything to do with forbidden topics or just a coincidence?"
There's a lot of significance there.
Yeah, and so I actually
6 walking ways.
Well, yeah, but what's the importance of the number 6 is what I'm getting out of that. And I looked it up while you guys were talking earlier.
It all comes back to the sum of numbers.
Yeah. And so I was looking at the numerology of number 6. What is the meaning behind number 6? And once I found that 6 is characterized by family, harmony, home, idealism, and healing.
I think I would more try to look at in universe. Let me look at.
Well, here's the thing, because a lot of the in universe numerology is influenced by real world numerology.
Don't get me wrong, I don't disagree, but there's some stuff that's like different.
And that's why 1 and 2 and 3 and 0 and 5 and 8, those are all very important numbers, and 16 is a big deal.
16 is a big important number because it's the combination of the 3 most important numbers, 3, 5, and 8.
Yeah.
2 is the worst number because it tries to represent duality, which we all know is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is purely one or the other.
So there's the sum of numbers. It lists the meaning for every number from 1 to 36.
Mm-hmm.
What each number represents.
Yeah, that's a good. Let's see. What sermon is that? That's sermon
29.
29.
Which is
so 6.
Anyway,
it's just the walking ways. But
there's the fun thing about this is that if you multiply or add up the numbers, you get fun stuff.
Yeah.
For instance, the walking ways multiplied by number 5, which is like the world, because the world is a 5-corner star.
Yeah.
You get 30, which is the number of the scarab, Lorcan.
Yeah.
If you multiply 6 by 3, which is the invisible gate, you get the egg, which is like the cosmic egg to something else.
Or 6 times the wise. So Almsavia is the wise. But so using real world numerology here, hold on, let me find the tab here. Fortunato was pointing out, corpus disease and all these things, like with the 6th house. And I look at the association with idealism, and compare that with the walking ways. So the walking ways is the ideal path, or there are 6 ideal paths to take to becoming a god, right, or to attaining divinity. And with 6th house, I notice home, family, these things, bringing someone bringing the entirety of the Arbus under one house, the house of Dagoth. That's numerology is such a huge deal that it's. I doubt that it's a coincidence. That the idealism, the home, and the family, those are the big ones that jump out at me. Healing, maybe not so much, unless we're talking about like healing the Godhead or something. Harmony, I don't know. We're reaching heaven. We're reaching heaven by violence here. We aren't holding hands and singing Kumbaya. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Play with numbers in tests. And I see 3 all the time. I see enantiomorphic relationships all over the place. The Somerset storyline had
9 is another important number.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually
where is 9 important, if I may ask?
8 and 1. It's the it's the 8 plus the missing. And there's an NPC in Skyrim who's like a court mage, just like a crazy person. She's like all wrapped around her own.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about with that.
And we get really weird. 9 in German is no.
No. She says that.
Numidium.
I mentioned this.
I'm fucking around.
Oh boy.
Numidium.
No, she says that. I forgot what's her name. I forgot.
It's
Wylandria.
What?
Wylandria. Wylandria.
Oh yeah, there's a line she said. She said that 9 is the most basic. Yeah, she says that 9 is the most basic of magical principles.
Yeah, well, how many schools of magic are there?
Oh wait, I actually might be able to answer that. Hold on.
I don't know if we count alchemy and enchanting. I'm going to include them just because. See, alchemy, enchanting, mysticism, restoration, destruction, conjuration, alteration.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Illusion.
There's 8.
8,
not including necromancy.
Ooh, is that even its? I guess. The schools are arbitrary.
Actually,
but
all right. So the reason I should point out, this is from Gabriel Benelli's proposal for the Schools of Magic to the Mages Guild, from her time at the university at Gwillem. Enchanting is not one of the schools of magic, interestingly enough.
All right.
The schools she offers are alchemy, alteration, conjuration, destruction, illusion, mysticism, restoration, and thaumaturgy.
Restoration. That was the one I was missing. That's 8. But then if we
so why?
Yeah.
Silence, you okay there?
What was your question?
Like why alchemy and not enchantment?
I don't know.
I think it might be because of how, especially in the case of ESO, how exactly they work. Because in the case of enchanting, I guess it would seem as though there's less of a school to be taught there because there's less variables. Because all enchanting in ESO is based purely on the use of rune stones. So there's a finite number of things you can actually do with it. Meanwhile, with alchemy, with how many different things you can indeed grind up and make into ingredients, you can do just about anything.
Yeah, throw in a wombat turret and the drinker becomes a square.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That was a really funny joke. I just want you to know that.
It was super funny.
Because wombat turds are cubic.
Don't let anyone tell you otherwise,
Yeah,
Andrew.
become a square.
Be there or be square. Haha.
Anyway, okay, so I'm going to move on from the numerology stuff because I mean, it's actually really, I guess, kind of shallow. I mean, there's a lot of kind of dicing we can do with it. But I mean, as far as
you're
as far as what we
every
can
time-
actually do with it, it's somewhat limited.
every time I try to get into numerology and gematria and whatever, I just go cross-eyed and I give up.
yeah, I mean, it gets weird, and I mean, some of that is I think Kirk
It's
Bride's
confirmation bias.
a little
I
bit.
think a lot of it.
But
You're just
that's what makes it fun.
you're just trying to recognize patterns,
Yeah.
and you go cross-eyed.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move on to another of Patricia's questions here. Let's see, I don't know anything about the Umbra'Keth. What would happen if
What's that? How
what
do
would
you
happen?
type that?
Umbra. Right. I recognize the word. I don't remember what that is. What would happen if an Umbra'Keth appears filled with the conflicting energy of the 4E wars, and there are no star teeth to stop?
Oh,
It's from Shadow.
Like
shadow magic.
pinnacle of
Yeah.
magic.
Oh, okay.
Umbra'Keths are formations of shadow
Umbra'Keth,
magic. They are physical
like- it's the
manifestations
shit.
of the conflict.
It's the shadow of conflict.
Yeah,
God.
The
they
soul
are
of conflict.
freaky looking, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Was
When there's like
that in Shadow Key?
Yeah, when there's like
Okay.
a big war, the shadow of this war generates these creatures
Yeah.
that are called
Uh,
Umbra'Keth.
Okay.
All right, so first off, Andrew, just so that you may potentially show the chat or show the viewers, here's a link to what an Umbra'Keth looks like.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very Lovecraftian.
Kind of looks like a sixth house poet, an ash poet.
It does a little.
Yeah, they are very terrifying to behold,
Yeah.
but they are a manifestation of conflict.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't. Let's see. So.
So honestly, if you ask me, if someone were to try to make an Umbra'Keth with wars from the fourth era, that'd be pretty dangerous.
More than a little bit, especially if you were using like the Great War. Rather
Yeah,
than
I would.
one of the smaller.
Oh
ones.
god.
I would wager that you'd be able to make something far more destructive than what it should be.
What is the shadow of
Well,
the...
but arguably doing it with
Oh god.
or
I'm freaking out here, guys.
Uh-oh.
what was
Why?
during that time.
What if the War of
That-
Manifest Metaphors generated a shadow?
That's. I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical about that.
Yeah, probably.
That
Too high on...
What about the Three Banners War?
That definitely, that could definitely manifest an Umbra'Keth. See,
Yeah,
that's what I feel is one of the bigger things here. I'm pretty sure Umbra'Keths don't manifest themselves unless they are made to be manifested. Like,
Yeah,
just
they're
because you have a
coalescing
war
energy.
doesn't mean one shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like coalescing energy that gets a form.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I
But
mean,
you need to have someone who will make it take that form.
okay, so I'm relying on you guys for the Umbra'Keth stuff. I never played Shadow Key.
Me neither, I just read...
and my knowledge of
neither
shadow
have I.
magic, my knowledge of shadow magic is fairly shallow.
Shadow magic is fucking
Oddly
awesome.
enough, my
It's
knowledge of shadow
fucking
magic-
dope.
My,
It's the dopest shit of all time.
What's,
my
you're cutting out, Silence.
sorry, internet's probably playing up again. But yeah, my knowledge of shadow magic, funnily enough, comes from a Skyrim mod, which took the idea that it saw in Shadowkey and tried to recreate it in Skyrim. So yes, there was an Umbra'Keth summon, but it was just a retextured Seeker, which was kind of disappointing.
How? Yeah, that's lame.
That is very lame.
But the
That's-
idea itself was pretty cool.
That's why I do kind of like the notion that Assass or Nightblades in ESO, when a player is a Nightblade, they are indeed practicing shadow magic, and in a way, they really are. Especially the shadow magic skill line, that is very much you forcing a manifestation of conflict. Like when you make a shadow clone, which is admittedly really funny and weeaboo, but when you make a clone made out of shadow, just a servant of yours, you're making that for the express purpose of combat. You're making that because you're in the middle of combat. You are using the shadow of conflict to manifest something to your favor.
Because I mean, because shadow magic, I've always figured is the because it's not using literal shadow necessarily.
No. It's not.
It's
typically not literal shadow.
It's effectively using. It's effectively using Rick and Morty style alternate dimensions and the different versions of you and basically coalescing those into one kind of thing. So you get an arrow shot at you. Well, you use shadow magic and you find the universe where that arrow missed or you dodged it.
Yeah,
and
that's what
that's
what the blur spell used to be before they changed it. It was you had, I believe that the way it worked in game was that prior to it getting its massive change, it was you had a 25% chance to just automatically dodge something. Yeah. So it was quite literally you using shadow magic for the express purpose of
I understand it.
Avoiding
shadow magic.
What's that, Silence?
The way my internet froze and I couldn't hear anyone, so I started talking. The way I understand shadow magic at its very basic, lowest tier level is it's very similar to regular magic. It's just like powered with the leftover remnants of a conflict.
No.
So
yes.
that can be literal shadows as a conflict between a solid object and light passing.
Correct.
Yeah,
Or it can be more or it can be a different sort of conflict, such as a war. Or, I mean, I guess you could say that like an inner conflict could maybe be used, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish Dylan were still in here because he would lay some dang
You lay
shit
some
down.
hot, thick lore down.
Yeah. Spread that lore butter on my earbreads.
Gross.
Please never say that ever again.
That was horrendous.
I said something similar to that to students one time, and they were like, "What?
Why?
It was it was
Do
funny.
I need to contact the principal?
No, it was no. Anyway, so there's that.
Weird.
So there's that. Let's see.
What else can we talk about?
There's one more thing in the chat I wanted to.
All right. After that, I guess we could bring up my thing on Saarthal.
Let's see. So, how valid is it that Arkay is an ascended god and not an Etata? I remember seeing something like that.
There's it's up in the air.
Yeah,
I recommend you check out the Arkay Lorecast.
Yep.
Which
the Arkay Selectives Lorecast, which was the last Lorecast that I was in.
Yeah, and I posted my theory on Arkay in the chat there and Rotten Reddit.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that. And I mean, maybe he was immortal in a previous Kalpa. I mean,
maybe he was a lesser spirit that just got powerful.
Yeah.
Because...
yeah. That's right. Because suddenly he was relevant. Because life and death were an actual thing.
Before he was the god of nobody really cares.
Yeah. I thought that was really dope.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, so definitely take a look at if you aren't subscribed to Memospore, MEMOSPORE, look that channel up because that's currently run by Rotten Deadite. And we do the Selectives Lorecasts on there. We do those once every 2 weeks as well. We do them in off weeks, so I'm usually in those. And our last one was Arkay. So I don't want to devote too much time to that since there's a whole Selectives Lorecast talking about.
I'm curious on the Saarthal thing because that piqued my interest.
Oh, I've piqued your interest with mentioning Saarthal.
Go figure out because that's random. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. What?
Yeah, it
what's
was
the thought?
it was the second thing I had prepared for tonight.
Well, let me jump to one more thing, and then we'll get to that.
Something?
So it was also asked. So getting back into the schools of magic, that we were kind of playing with a little bit ago, and it is 10, 17. Okay. So what about thaumaturgy? I know we kind of mentioned thaumaturgy. I mean, it's a valid magic school too. It also seems to me that the destruction and restoration are rather classifications than real magical schools. Is it also appropriate to name blood magic to the manipulation of attribute skills and knowledge?
I think it's important to note that the Mages Guild division of magic schools was only ever intended as a guide to make teaching apprentices easier.
Yes.
You can actually find a note from a letter written by Venus Galerion himself in ESO, explaining the idea and
no, it
clarifying
wasn't.
that.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't Vanus Galerion. It was Gabrielle Bonnell.
I'm going to try to find out. Maybe.
Yeah, because I know what you're talking about. So the schools are actually pretty arbitrary. They were just kind of decided upon, rather than playing with a balloon. Rather than actually
Gabrielle Bonnell, proposal, School of Magic.
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
3,
And so
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And
she proposes 8.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier. And so I mean, it stands to reason because if that's the Mages Guild, then the Synod might have something, a completely different organizational system. The College of Winterhold maybe puts different spells in different schools, which they do. They got rid of mysticism altogether.
Let's put on. Okay, so let's put on our team for just have some fun. If these are the 8 known schools of magic, what's the missing 9th?
I mean, possibly necromancy. That was one that we threw around.
Because let's face it, I kind of don't want to teach my students necromancy.
Yeah. I mean, there's also potentially shadow magic. I don't know that I'd call blood magic like its own thing.
Shadow magic, it's like alteration on a high scale. It's altering time.
Yeah. I mean, there's also tonal magic.
Wouldn't the I was about to say tonal magic would be the lost school.
Well, that's another sort of interesting point. The fact that tonal architecture isn't necessarily magic.
Not tonal architecture, but tonal magic. They're not the same.
Yeah, because tonal architecture is just what the Dwemer used, and that was
but I'm totally going with that now. The missing 9th school is tonal magic.
Well, but see, I've always
it literally went missing from the world.
See, and I've always thought of tonal magic as a wholly separate. It is the. Oh God, how do I? It's.
Go ahead.
It's architecture, architectural drawing, as opposed to physics, right? You've got two. I mean, both are used in putting buildings together, but they're two totally different and unrelated things, right? And so tonal architecture or tonal magic, if it's the Shahai, if it's the Thum. Tonal magic is the manipulation of the base fabric of the dream itself, which I think the dreamer's got a song stuck in his head. But
oh God, I just
fucking earworms, right?
Idea.
And then we've got stuff like a memory magic, dawn magic, stuff like
Nice.
mythopoeia. I mean, how do we categorize those? Because that's not the same as, you use your formula and you recite the verbal components, you do the little somatic deal, and then you cast your spell. It's so much more ephemeral than that, right? Because it's like the Thu'um, for example. They're not actual spells per se. It's based on your understanding of this concept or of this word or of this history.
Oh wow, there's a lot of typing going on right now.
Yeah, I'm making
Well,
fun
just
of
answering something on the Discord.
Oh boy.
Okay. Here, I'll delete all that nonsense. I just
Several people are typing.
two of you were typing, so I jumped in. I thought it would be funny. Animus magic. I think
No.
that's kind of cool.
So soul magic.
Yeah. I guess that would be basically
Interesting.
soul magic. Yeah, which I mean, there's a whole skill line in ESO.
Jesus. I'm terribly sorry. I'm getting upset at quite literally all of my followers right now because they have stolen 2 artifacts from me. Which means I can't get them back until these guys die.
In the game. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've been playing Minecraft. Okay, so yeah, I mean, is blood magic its own thing, or would that be
I
some
don't
kind of?
think it.
I mean, would that
I
be
think-
some kind of weird derivative of like a necromancy and restoration
Blood
simultaneously?
magic, I'd say, is probably closer to restoration than anything.
Yeah, like weaponized restoration
Yeah, it's
or
awesome.
something.
I mean,
Yeah,
admittedly, the first thing I think of when I hear weaponized restoration, I immediately think, oh, forcibly giving someone cancer. But
There's
That
actually.
might just be you.
that may
Well,
just be.
well, no,
No, it's not. I immediately thought of something like that as well.
well, I'm thinking.
Anyone here ever read Worm?
No.
Or heard of it?
No.
It's a very good web serial novel. It's like
Type it in chat and I'll look it up.
That one, the one that everyone was fascinated with in like 2014.
yeah,
That
I
I
like
never read
it.
because it sounded kind of rubbish.
See, I think of Avatar: The Last Airbender and waterbending and bloodbending. Because waterbending can be used as a healing sort of thing. You use
like
and then bloodbending is, I'm going to control you, and it hurts. And
Anyway, it's a superhero urban science fiction setting, kind of dystopian too. The reason I mention it because there's a character there with healing powers who can like immediately know any disease or wound a person has and immediately cure it with like a thought. But she can also do the reverse.
So it's Shatterpoint.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, Shatterpoint.
It's a thing from the Star Wars League.
Anyway, she can just heal someone from anything, but she can also give diseases and wounds and stuff as well. So, weaponized restoration, I would think would be something like that.
yeah, I think that's kind of sick.
Well, I kind of like to think of restoration, like the disease curing stuff at least, to be basically just targeted murder. Like rather than just removing symptoms, you're actually like killing whatever the pathogen is that's causing the disease. So something like that on a grand scale, like against people.
Maybe. I don't know, it's like 2 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Man, I think this was the longest Lorechat in a while.
I mean, we're at an hour, just longer than an hour and a half. Yeah. So, Charlie,
Huh?
you had something to you had something you wanted to.
Oh yeah. The Saarthal thing.
Yeah.
I believe that the Nords are massive liars.
Okay. Do go on.
All right. So let me begin by asking you, the group with me, and also you, the
Oh,
viewers
okay.
at home.
Oh.
What is the story of Saarthal?
Well, it's supposed to be the first place that Isgramor landed, and like the first human city on Tamriel.
All right.
That eventually got sacked by the Snow Elves. Isgramor left, came back with the 500 companions, and then slaughtered a lot of them.
Yeah. By the way, I should point out to anyone at home who doesn't know, that slaughtering lasted for 13 generations, long after people forgot why they were hunting Falmer. But anyway, I believe that is a complete bullshit horse lie.
A horse
Do go
lie?
on.
Sorry, I was trying to think about how to be really dramatic with my
I'm
wording.
just imagining
but-
a horse laying down right now. Like,
Hey, listen, that's adorable. But anyway, so here's the thing. On the one hand, I can say the Nords are lying because they are the most Lorcanish of all the races of men, and by extension, they will act like Lorcan, and Lorcan will lie to his own benefit. He will only tell the truth when he has no reason to lie. But here's the other thing. Hesef Chiririnus, or Quirinus, he has a very odd name. He has written a single book. This book is called The Fall of Saarthal, and more specifically is his report on his archaeological findings at Saarthal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, I believe, as I am skimming through this right now to jog my memory with it, I should point out that this was back when he was still learning as an archaeologist. But we also know that this is somewhat recent because of the college's expeditions of Saarthal that they've been started in recent years. Now,
Yeah,
of
I'd
course,
say
Hesef
probably
brings...
only like a decade ago.
Now, of course,
At
Hesef
most.
brings up that, according to the old stories, it was that the first city of men on Tamriel was Saarthal. The elves were jealous, and they were fearful of the threat men posed to them. So they did not like them, and they attacked them. And then the brave Nords fought back and committed genocide.
Yay.
Because that's an appropriate response.
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
But so here's
Like
the
I
thing.
said, and like I always said, Elder Scrolls is fantasy racism simulator.
Yeah,
Basically.
it is. So as Hesef brings up in his report, he was initially very, very interested in Saarthal. He was very interested to find that all this stonework, that so much of it seemed to be untouched by the conflict, and that initially he was praising Atmoran's stonework, but then follows up in his report, or rather, that's what he initially thought. Perhaps it was a mistaken sense of pride in the accomplishments in the early men, or perhaps it was just his own inexperience that led him to this conclusion. Something was amiss, though. Repeated attempts to consult the exceedingly perceptive archaeologists were unfruitful, often digressing into lectures on the bathing habits of Saarthal residents or the average number of potted plants in homes. I was once again forced to rely on my limited powers of observation and deduction. And here is what Hesef found. not only was the attack on Saarthal not widespread, and instead was actually very focused and seemed to be going towards something, but the elves seem to know the actual layout of the city. Which to me implies two things. Number one, if this was a coordinated, spearheaded attack that was not widespread and not meant to get rid of the Atmorans, they were going after the Eye of Magnus.
Yeah.
And number
They
two,
found out it was there.
that's the bigger part. Number two, it makes me think that Saarthal isn't an Atmoran city, and that it was indeed originally a Falmer city, and they got kicked out by the Atmorans because they knew the layout of the city.
I mean, it could also be that there was significant trade and interaction between the two races before the Eye was uncovered.
Potentially.
So it could just be that the former was familiar enough with the city from having visited so many times that they knew which direction that they needed to go.
Yes, but from what I'm proposing that the Nords are following the same trend they always tend to of kick out and conquer. Kick the original inhabitants out and take the land. See the Reachmen.
Yeah.
Now, with this in mind, this puts the sacking of Saarthal in a completely different light. Because this turns the sacking of Saarthal from an attack fueled by hatred and rage and fear into a spearheaded let's get our shit back mission.
Yeah, more of a retribution than a...
It's more retribution, and a funny way to put it, they got kicked out of their apartment and they were trying to get their stuff back. And let's think about this as well. There's a distinct possibility that many of the Nords in Saarthal were either normal, regular guards, or they were just civilians. So none of them actually knew about the Eye. None of them could feel the presence of the Eye.
Yeah.
So
Arzadal,
what
if I
would
remember
they...
correctly, was the first Nord,
Yes.
really, and he became one after the sacking.
So if they couldn't feel the presence of the Eye, and suddenly the Falmer are rushing the guards, getting the guards out of the way, and probably killing some of them as well in the process, what would they actually think of what's going on?
It may look like a hate-based attack, certainly.
Yeah. And then the Nords automatically assume the worst. They say, oh, these elves are racist, and then that justifies us genociding them. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. But that's my take on Saarthal. It was initially a Falmer city that, unfortunately, was taken away from them.
The only problem with that I can see is that all of the architecture, that admittedly we only see part of it.
Yeah, we only see part of it, and it is Nordic architecture. But let's also think about this. Would they really keep up old architecture if it was made by people they hate?
Not necessarily, but you'd think there'd still be at least some traces.
Perhaps. Or, perhaps in this context...
Maybe those traces are deeper than we've gone, but...
Yeah, they could be deeper than we've gone. It could also be a matter of they may have actually replaced everything.
Look at what I posted on Camp Charlie.
What am I looking at here? Oh, I'm going to save that because it's funny.
That is very funny, but I would like to point out there's really only like one instance where this works.
Pelinal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Izmir.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. This is just an added thing. So hey, Andrew. You know how you guys brought up in the Selectives lore cast about the Dureni having Nedic slaves?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lie.
Is it the Baratu?
Nope. Hey, Andrew, guess what? It was literally just a feudal caste system. Like, what I'm specifically bringing up is the armchair anthropologist himself, Phrastus of Elenir, in his book Bretons, Mongrels, or Paragons, he specifically brings up that the noble families of the Bretons, following the Alessian Order's sacking of High Rock and killing most of the members of House Durrani, it was the people with the highest amount of Durrani blood, the highest amount of Elven blood in their veins that made up the upper echelons of the lower class. So they stepped into the Durrani shoes since the Durrani retreated to Balfiera. But in order to distance themselves from the Durrani, they started making up stories about how they've always fought against the Durrani and how they've always been rebellious against them. So on the one hand, you can make a 1984 joke. On the other hand, you can very clearly see, oh yeah, no, that's actually just straight up lies. And that the Durrani were actually just, like, High Rock was actually just a feudal system, and in fact, very likely the same feudal system it is now.
Interesting.
And as I spoke about with Mac, we brought up a very hilarious point. If you were to try and refute that and say that, oh, it's a feudal system, so it's still slavery, then by that logic, all Nords are slaves to the High King. All Imperials are slaves to the Emperor, etc. By that logic, also all Khajiit would be slaves to the Main.
Well, I'm done with my beer now.
Oh boy.
So
That sounds like it's the end of the Lorecast.
And I think we might be done.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, no, I'm tired. I still gotta log into ESO and get my dailies.
I need to actually start doing that again.
No, I gotta do that still. I haven't even upgraded my mounts today. What the fuck is wrong with me? But all right, so we're gonna wrap that up. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Always remember we do this every 2 weeks. So the next one will be on the 6th of July. That's when we will be reconvening. Next weekend we should be doing a Selectives Lorecast. I don't actually know what our topic is. Well, let me see if we've decided on something. Yeah, we did.
Man, I'd love to join a Selectives Lorecast. Like,
the next one is going to be
in a Selectives Lorecast.
It's going to be the what?
The Bella. They're going through the divines. One at a time.
Okay, yeah. Because I made penis jokes. That's right.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
as is tradition.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. So yeah, DeBella next week, Saturday morning, like cartoons but better.
I'd love to join in on Selectives Lorecast, like actually talk in it. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm self-conscious.
So would I. I would just need to know my shit first.
It's just not all my call. So
I would love to, but
yeah.
Although apparently I didn't have issues with the mic today.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're coming in really. I mean, the typing was loud, but yeah. But anyway, we're gonna get off air. So
bye,
everybody wave.
Bye, internet.
Everybody wave.
I'm waving. I promise.